Shisui is considered one of the most powerful genjutsu users in Naruto. But what if I told you he should have never existed? His presence breaks plot logic, weakens Itachi's tragedy, and was clearly a late-stage patch to fill narrative holes. Shisui Uchiha, also known as Shisui of the Body Flicker, he was Itachi's best friend and a prodigy of the Uchiha clan. He was introduced in Naruto chapter 459, very late in part 2, fleshed out in the data books and Itachi Shinden Book of Bright Light. And let's get into his broken ass ability. Dude awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan at a very young age, and he possessed the Koto Amatsu Kami, a genjutsu powerful enough to manipulate someone's actions without them realizing it. He allegedly wanted peace and planned to use his genjutsu on Fugaku Uchiha to prevent the coup. He gave his eye to Itachi before committing suicide to prevent Danzo from stealing it. And this is where the inconsistencies begin. Here's where his character starts to ruin things from a story structure standpoint. He is never mentioned in part 1 or in the early part 2 of the Uchiha backstory reveals. His existence feels like a late addition to give Itachi a best friend and a scapegoat for emotional development, something already achieved through Sasuke, so it was kind of pointless. And this insane ability, Koto Matsukami, meaning distinguished heavenly gods, is the Mangekyo Sharingan ability of Shisui Uchiha. It allows the user to enter a person's mind and manipulate their thoughts, so subtly that the target believes those thoughts were his own free will. Unlike normal genjutsu, where chakra flows is disrupted and can be detected, Koto Matsukami rewrites thoughts at a subconscious level. The person doesn't even know they're being manipulated, and that makes it impossible to resist unless you have some specific countermeasures, and it doesn't even require long eye contact. Just a quick glance is enough. The effect is permanent unless manually broken. After use, Shisui's Mangekyo needs a decade to recharge. However, if implanted in Hashirama cells, as Danzo did, the cooldown is massively shortened. And here's my problem. The idea that Shisui had a mind-controlling genjutsu so powerful that it could have prevented the entire Uchiha massacre renders much of the story moot. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why didn't Hiruzen allow him to use it? Like, Hiruzen already knew Danzo was dirty, and he knew that Danzo was probably gonna find a way to massacre the Uchiha clan. But, you know, Hiruzen has made a bunch of mistakes, so we're not even gonna get into him today. So my next question is, why didn't Itachi use the second eye for himself? No one will ever know this answer. And then if he got the Hashirama cells planted into him, he could have used it further on Madara or Obito and could have ended the war due to the cooldown being much quicker. So like, why introduce this powerful tool just to make it irrelevant? Dude used it once and then destroyed the eye as if the war was going to stop with Kabuto going down. But let's look at this broken ass ability in battle. Danzo vs Sasuke in Naruto chapter 479. Danzo uses the ability on Sasuke but is too slow and dies before activating it. It would have changed everything had he got this off. Itachi vs Kabuto in chapter 586. Itachi under Ito Tensei control uses Koto Matsukami via Shisui's left eye and a crow to break free of Kabuto's control and stop the Ito Tensei resurrection jutsu. This worked despite being dead and despite Kabuto having full command of his movements. And what does this tell us? Koto Matsukami overrides Ito Tensei, which is the strongest binding jutsu in the series. But let's talk about Shisui as a character. How he's so strong, but not so strong. And it doesn't make sense, but let's get into it. Danzo somehow takes one of Shisui's Mangekyo eyes right before Shisui commits suicide. But this happens off panel with no real tension or explanation. It's also strange that Shisui, a genjutsu and speed expert, couldn't prevent the theft, but Danzo, an old man with no Sharingan, could? Interesting. Okay. And now Shisui's addition softens and complicates Itachi's clear and clean tragic arc. Before Shisui, Itachi was a child who made an impossible decision to kill his clan to stop a civil war. It was raw, emotional, tragic, and tied directly to his bond with Sasuke. After Shisui was inserted into the story, Itachi's own decisions became more about fulfilling Shisui's will than his own. Koto Matsukami gives him an easy way out that the story deliberately avoids using, which raises major plot holes. weakening his role as the story's tragic hero. And much of Shisui's backstory is expanded on filler episodes and data books, showing that he was barely present in the actual story. So what Kishimoto really did essentially was create a god-tier genjutsu user, gave him absurd power, and killed him off-screen. Then used data books and novels to fill in his story retroactively. That's pretty bad storytelling, especially when the character's abilities break the rules established for the rest of the Uchiha. I mean, literally, his eye was stronger than most renegades. Probably all the renegades we've seen, which is actually insane. But hey, I'm not an author. Instead, as an adult, I see that Shisui could have been probably the most amazing villain, or a secret weapon to either fight along Naruto and the crew, or go on to be a rogue ninja like Itachi. Like, killing himself off screen over losing his own eye makes no sense, considering at some point he would have needed to take someone else's eyes in order to get EMS. But instead, he's a convenient plot hole, a throwaway legend. His jutsu is never used to his full potential, and his sacrifice causes more narrative confusion than resolution. I really used to be a Shisui stan when I was younger, but the more and more I watched the show and read the manga, I realized he should have never been introduced. Sometimes adding more characters doesn't enrich the story, it ruins what was already perfect.